Well, first, just a bit of a love song to the land I live in right now. Yeah, this desert that is home to so many beings. For thousands of years, humans have lived here and been in relationship with the giant saguaro cacti, with the bats. I'm absolutely fascinated by the mother bats that fly. It's something like 2,000 kilometers from Mexico. They make their way, these tiny little mamas with their fetus in their wombs. They fly up towards the blossoming cactus, towards the saguaro cactus and the agave blooms. And they make this treacherous journey, just trusting that nectar is waiting for them. And the cacti here are waiting for the bats to come and pollinate them in only the way they can. And so to be in that, I mean, the risk of that, the trust, the faith that these beings have. I mean, the cactus to open in a place where water is so precious. I know you've spent time here, and it's like the dry, your skin dries out, to open this magnificent white bloom under the moonlight, to give all of that energy and that risk of opening into the night. It just breaks my heart. Like that kind of faith to send everything. It's like, who knows what's happening with the world, with climate change, with all the things, but it's like, they still just like, I will open. I will take the precious water and give this gift to the night, to the moon, to the bats that are coming up. And that, just that, there's so many things I could speak of here in the desert, but that's one of the stories that just absolutely has me captivated.
Welcome to Mythopoetics for the Future. I'm your host, Sarah. And today I am honored and delighted to invite Marta Gaunt to share her wisdom with us. Welcome, Marta.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a delight and an honor to be here with you after knowing you for many years now. What a privilege to get to be here and speak with you today.
I remember it was in Aravaipa in the desert that I met you, and it's extraordinary the conversations that we've had through the years now, and I'm just so excited for all of you who are here with us to experience Marta. I'm just going to give us a very brief introduction to the body that is mythopoetics. I'm going to read a poem and gift some words that Marta expresses about who she is, and then we'll go first into the interview. So, mythopoetics for me is a way to navigate and experience and guide us into a place in our existence, a way into truth and an intimate relationship with the greater web of life. That is, for me, inherently magical and sacred. And why for the future? This includes the present and holds space for the dreaming together and the weaving into the world that we're all dreaming for. Here in Mythopoetics for the Future, very special people come to plant seeds that we can all hold very carefully in the palms of our hands. Here we create conversation and explore ways of thinking and being for human evolution, and also to care for the more than human world, which essentially means the interconnected community of the entire animate earth, animals, plants, landscapes, and ecosystems. I believe it's time, more than ever before, to be in these co-emergent conversations for the present and the future world. To briefly contextualize mythopoetics and mythopoetic thinking, I'm going to refer to the authors of the book Before Philosophy, The Intellectual Adventure of Ancient Man, written by the Frankforts. They stated the fundamental difference between the attitudes of modern and ancient people as regards to the surrounding world is this. For modern people, they experience the phenomenal world primarily as it. The ancient people experience the phenomenal world as thou. In other words, the modern people see most things as impersonal objects, whereas the ancient peoples saw things as beings. And that's very important. And now I'm going to read from the English poet Tom Hirons from his book, The Queen of Heaven. It's called The Secret Sun on Time's Shore. Mm-hmm. Here in the calendar's dark days, I can only sing my strange songs of love and my faith in the tides, the way the year sweeps us back and overrolling us through time's underbelly and all the high heavens. Whatever delight or despair crashes through this tired heart, I'll sing it now. I have lost all appetite for singing tranquil songs. I'll roar and wave my fists and pour tears of sorrow and joy onto the stone of this life. Is it dark? Here is my coal black singing. Is it light? Here is my luminous cry. In the darkness, I'll burrow through the floor of the underworld to find the secret sun, the one that's only known to those who've surrendered all the fixed stars and stand now as troubadours on time's shore, singing their love songs to comets and coal dust, to the luminous, turbulent world. The love song that Marta has been singing, and I'm going to speak now to who Marta is. She has always been drawn to the fruitful, dark places since childhood, to mystery, to myth, to the night, to the wild intelligence of the more than human world. Marta is a soul initiation guide and mentor. She is particularly called to the territories of the underworld. Going to tell us about that, creating ceremonial spaces for profound transformation and soul encounter. Marta has been studying nature-based soul work with Animas Valley Institute since 2015. She's also trained in wilderness education and nature connection and has been working with both youth and adults. For Marta, the body is a primary portal to soul. She brings years of somatic practice, including 5 rhythms, contact, improvisation, and dance healing work into her guiding, along with her love of dream work, ceremony, art, and the imaginal realms. She sees the vulnerability and courage it takes to shed the old skins and surrender to transformation as critical to participating fully in the world at this time. Marta lives in the wilds of the American Southwest, where she is continually undone by the soft beauty of black widows, breathing the desert night, the love-making between saguaro and bat, and the magic of the toads emerging in the monsoon rains. All right, without further ado, Marta, can you tell us right now, at this pivotal time for us all on the planet, what is making you feel alive and in your relationship with the world?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Right now, it's something about the intimacy of connection with humans, with more than humans. There's so much happening in the world right now, so much that's pulling our attention, my attention. And within that, there are moments that, like Mary Oliver says, that bring me to my knees. And sometimes it's just that if we're present enough, if I'm present enough and can be aware of what's happening and not miss the moment, it's like if I look down at the right, just in that moment, there I see the funnel web weaver's beautiful web going deep into the earth. It's the simplest thing, but it's so gorgeous. Like it breaks my heart how perfect this being is to create such intricacy. Something that, it would be so easy just to walk by. Um, and kind of the magic that can happen as well. The other night I was in a canyon in Arizona, and a friend, a dear one, came to me, knocked at my door at 11 at night and said, "Let's go looking for scorpions." And this human creature had a black light. And if you don't know this, scorpions under a black light, they glow absolutely a fluorescent green. Something in their exoskeleton refracts the light. And so in a canyon of darkness, we're walking through, and suddenly on the wall, there's this amazing being that has evolved and adapted and lives with that place. And it's just like the giddy delight I felt like a little kid finding, it's like the Easter egg hunt or something, but there's something about just like, oh, here you are. So like the aliveness I felt there in the middle of the night under the stars, being invited to go and meet these creatures, meet these beings, those kinds of moments bring me so much aliveness. And what also brings me alive right now is the heartbreak. There's so much. And it's like friends here in the US. I've got a friend right there in Minnesota where, horrible things are happening. I live here near the border, and it's, yes, these things are happening, but somehow if I can be present again and let my heart crack rather than shut down, that's where I feel the aliveness moving through. Like how to be with that. So it's in that, to be with my friend as he's grieving, as he's feeling his own heartbreak. I can't be there. I'm not physically there, but how do I show up in relationship, in intimacy? That feels alive to me. So there's probably so much more I could speak to, but it's something about that, the edge of presence, the edge of awareness, and just taking in what's here always. What's here, the exquisite world that I am privileged to be part of. Like, how is this possible? Yeah.
Gosh, so the aliveness and the heartbreak. I just love that image of you at 11 o'clock at night with the black light going out to see the scorpions. That is so powerful. Gosh. Okay, so you're talking to us about the edge of presence, you say. The edge of presence. Let's weave in now, if you could. What does the edge of presence have to do with mythopoetics? Like, what is mythopoetics for you? Why is it important as a map or a way into the psyche for life? Yeah, I think first that would be really, really fascinating. Then I have another question. Thanks, Marta.
Yeah, so for me, mythopoetics, it's so important because it has to do with a worldview and how we perceive the world, how we know the world. And so much in our contemporary time is analytical, cerebral, kind of putting things in a very linear way. And for me, the idea of mythopoetics is a way through metaphor, poetry, image, creativity to understand ourselves in a way that, for example, dreams and mythology and story, they work in a nonlinear way. They work in this way that shifts our consciousness, that opens, for me, it opens the world to something much bigger than to simply name. Taxonomy is beautiful and I appreciate science, and yet there's something that makes it small. And so for the world and for ourselves to understand ourselves through the lens of mythopoetics, lets ourselves enter into the imaginal, into the dreaming of the world in a way that allows a porosity, allows boundaries to be softer, and allow the fullness of imagination to come through.
So you speak to us about how mythopoetics opens the world, and that somehow the world is dreaming through us. Could you tell us, like, about your specific mythopoetic identity? Like, how did it arise? What experiences did you have? How did you bring it together? And then, how does it relate specifically to your uniqueness? I know it's lots of questions, but to your uniqueness and also to your wounding. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. So first, a little bit about this idea of the world's dreaming. It's so different from the contemporary worldview of that you started with when you spoke to the idea of ancient peoples seeing a thou versus an it. And something like that, it's like we are, you and I, all of the humans, everything here is part of the world. And so if we see the world as alive and dreaming, we are part of the world emerging as itself. So it's like, I am the world speaking as the world speaking to you. So it's quite a shift, but it's like, if we can even start to go there, I think something opens up. And there's a way, so for my own journey with discovering my mythos, there are parts of it that go back to childhood. For me, my relationship with the night has deepened. There were times where I felt fearful to go into the darkness. Maybe in my 20s or 30s, before I found some of the soul work and the work through Animas Valley Institute. But I'll say, as a very small child, I found myself creeping outside in the middle of the night. I would, against, my parents did not like this, but I would open the window, and I loved going out into the dark and the feel of wet grass on my feet, crawling under trees, and the snails that were moving, feeding in the night. And so that piece, with now one of the ways that I know myself to be in the world, is one in love with the night, one in relationship with darkness and night. And that's a thread that's been there since I was a small child. And that realization didn't come to me until just a few years ago, remembering I'd almost forgotten that part. So I could say the same for many threads of my mythos. And another one is, for a lot of us, we might have childhood dreams. And as a kid, I would have these terrible nightmares of spiders. And they would, I would imagine there were spiders all in my covers and in my bed, and I would wake up terrified. And so it was hard as a kid to be with that. I'd go run and want to cuddle my mom, I'd be comforted. But years later, when I was working with one of my mentors, she had me go back into the dream. So not cerebrally, but fully go back into the dream and feel the many spiders. And in this working with being re-entering the dream, suddenly I had a sense of what the spiders are up to. And it's like they're getting my attention. And I felt each of these millions, billions of spiders, the way that they are connected to everything. And suddenly I felt myself not terrified, but held and connected and in the web in the most profound way. I mean, it's one of the most just trembling, gorgeous experiences. And so now as I feel myself in the world, that's with me always, is that connection and my relationship with spider. And there are many other layers to that. But that's one way that a thread can move from the territory of nightmare of childhood and being there. It's like, oh, you've always been with me. You've always been with me. But something had to shift in me in order to understand what was happening. And yeah, many many, many threads of mythos I could point to, but another deep one is there's an image that also came through dream originally. And I dreamt of grandmothers with a golden eye. And in one dream, it's a grandmother. She has this huge, strange golden eye, just one. And yeah, it was alluring. It was disturbing. I felt a bit trembling, in her presence. And I had several dreams like this. And what I started to do was to paint and to draw and to try to have in my waking world this image of this golden eye. It didn't make any sense, and I actually just let it not make sense. And there's a way of I put these drawings, these mini paintings, I spread them out. I remember sitting in Death Valley under a tarp under the 100+ degree sun, and I was just surrounded by these golden eyes and just let them be in the field with me. And then a few weeks, months later, I was on a vision fast. And on the third night of this fast, suddenly I felt the presence of grandmothers. And I could say human. Yes, they're human in some ways, but in some way it's like one of those mirrors you look in and it goes back forever. It's like that, where all these grandmothers were there from human to before human to even stone and water, like live through the grandmothers. And in that, they told me, like, you are one of this lineage of the golden eye. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. I still don't fully understand it, but there's a way of seeing in the dark, of exploring the unknown, of this way through. There's a seeing to it, but it's also through my heart, through my body, like the way that when I enter or I'm entered by the golden eye, it's like a way that I'm connected to the world and can see and feel in a particular way in the realms of what I might call underworld or mystery or knowing. And there's a deep, deep loving and a deep holding and an honoring too of that lineage. So yeah, that's a few threads could share right now. Yeah.
So much. I really felt that as I was listening to you. It's so fascinating to think of you surrounding yourself with all of these paintings. And then, yes, thank you for sharing that very special moment. Because I know that when we're fasting on the land, it's very special. Like it's a very sort of, there's an altered state that happens. And gosh, yes, that you felt the presence of these ones. And I really get the sense, and this leads into the next place that we're going to explore. I really get the sense that you are embodying an understanding of a way of engaging with life, with the greater web, and so beautiful how you were able to go into that place of the dream as a child. And I feel as if somehow how healing that would be on some unconscious level, conscious and unconscious, like the power of dream work. I truly believe that, to sort of have its effect on our psyche. That's just really, really, really beautiful. Yeah. So I guess now that we've tasted some of your specific ways of engaging with life and in your work, could you explain to us all, yes, like how could we, if we wanted to go about creating a relationship with our myth or who we are, or what approaches or techniques or ceremonies or practices, perhaps you mentioned some, but are the most profound for you? And what ones also do you still tend to today? You talked about there's still like this, the beauty of holding the question, the beauty of holding this mysterious question, like, yes, could you tell us, please?
Yeah, so lots of different ways to start the conversation, because that's what it feels like to me. It's almost like mystery is around us at all times, but we're often kind of blocked off, siloed, if you will. And so it's like, how do I just begin? What's the first thing? And yeah, dream tending is one that I often recommend to people. And it's really about deepening the relationship with dreams. And the first thing might be something as simple as starting to write down or record your dreams. Nothing even beyond that, even just to have a journal and every night write down your dreams. Speaking them aloud is another practice that could be done with other humans. It could be done going into the garden and finding a tree or a flower, a bird, someone, and just sharing the dream images. There's something about making real, making embodied the night images in the waking world that has a potency. And in some ways it's quite like, just like with another human, our attention and engagement matters. So if someone is coming up knocking on the door and I never answer, nothing's going to happen. So with the dream work, with dream maker, dream matrix, wherever dreams come from, it's like maybe opening the door, saying hello, you know? And that could be hard in our world right now. There's so much in the contemporary human society. We want to figure things out. We want to know exactly what things mean. So there's a tendency to want to interpret dreams, to want to look into a dictionary of symbols and that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a curiosity, but I really recommend people just spending time. And that might be something like what I did with, if you have dream images, I know people who draw their dreams every morning, even if they're not artists or they don't feel, maybe the color purple is in your dream, or there's a candle flickering, and maybe just to draw that and feel it, or putting it on a piece of clothing. That if you're wearing, a fully red outfit in your dream, what would happen if you walked around in the day world? So, I mean, I love dream work, as you can tell, so I can kind of probably list off a million ways to go in, but it's really just to play and explore. It can be helpful to work with someone who can help you deepen into the dream as well. And I know you've done that. We both do that, and that's one of the practices I still do. I still have mentors through Animus that I work with, and I still tend the dreaming. I still draw them. And we'll embody them. So that's a really accessible way for a lot of people. And if you don't remember your dreams, then even the process of giving them attention, often they start to get clearer and fresher and more available. So I tell that a lot of people, I don't really remember, but if we give our attention to them, they often do start to become more vivid, more memorable. And the other one is giving our attention to the more than human world. So many things taking our attention, all of the screens, all of the stuff, the politics. Oof. So the first would be open the door, walk outside. Going on a vision fast is beautiful. Going on a long program is beautiful, but it's right there. I remember years ago living in Seattle, and in the concrete, walking downtown, the trees that were planted there in the concrete, I would stop and just pause and be with them. And yeah, no one else even has to know what you're up to, but it's just that like acknowledgement, the thou-ness, holding the possibility that this being is alive, and holding the possibility that this being is sentient, and it's like, what happens to us when we start to give our attention out? And Another very simple practice is, maybe not in downtown Seattle or London, but is to use our voices, and the practice of going out into wild places and naming the beauty that we see. You might say, "Oh, you beautiful purple flower with white veins, and oh, you have a little yellow center." And just like, what happens to you? Like if I look at you, Sarah, and I say, "Oh, wow, you have an earring that's hanging down, and there's some red, and another one that's dangling." It's like suddenly we know what that feels like when another human gives us attention. And so, with the power of imagination, like what happens when we give our attention to the wild, to the more than human, just tending that space. So those are some really simple things. They cost nothing other than our attention, which is perhaps one of the most valuable things that we have. So yeah, and I could list lots and lots of practices, but those are maybe a couple simple ones. I could go into some somatics as well. I think tending the body knowing and emotions, really big too. And we might talk a little bit more about somatics, but I'll just say that I find that in our contemporary culture, a lot of people are so disconnected from the body and from emotions. And for me, going into various movement practices, dance practices, really helping to get into the knowing of the body. And it's, the more I can sense and feel and imagine through my body, the more I can also then be in contact with, on that walk outside, I've got more contact there. When I'm then with the dreams, there's more deepening of the conversation as well. So tending the parts of ourselves that have been less tended in contemporary culture.
Yes. So you're speaking to us about actual actions that we can create. Mm. All of these, I believe, fertile seeds in the garden for our own personal evolution and a deepening into what I truly understand is this sense of belonging and place. I really, truly believe that the mythopoetics is a way for us to feel a part of this greater web of life, as you mentioned. And I would love for you now to speak to us as you're talking, and I'm just feeling how powerful it is for you. Yeah, about your relationship with dance and somatic work. Yes, could you tell us who have been the main influences in this field? Could you explain to us, perhaps with a little more sort of insight? What do you feel? What happens to you when you practice it, and also when you teach others? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And if I could, just to backtrack one moment, I want to name something that often in the realms of healing work in the contemporary world, there's a focus on what it does for us. But I also want to name that the importance of the impact on the world. So what if it mattered? What if it mattered that I went out and spoke to that flower? Like the same as if I spoke to you. It's like, what if in your day suddenly this attention is brought to you? So I just want to name that it can be internal, but there's also this turning toward the world might have an impact, might be the beauty that the world is waiting for. So just to name that part as well.
May I just, I'm just finding this really super fascinating. If before you speak to us about dance and somatic work, could we just embellish this just a little bit more? Because I think it's sort of, I was having this conversation today, actually, and this person was talking to me about taking a whole day to go onto the land, and how is that, is that selfish somehow? Like this question of taking time to contemplate and be with the land, or be like, you're speaking about something that perhaps we didn't grow up with these concepts, like it's actually important to go out and create a relationship as the indigenous peoples all over the world with the tree, and so on and so forth. So could you just sort of Yeah, could you say something else so that we could understand it perhaps a little bit more, what you're saying? Yes, I'd love that.
Yeah, it's there's something about offering our beauty to the world, which might be in the form of poem or praise or prayer. These things that are intangible in a way through the capitalistic society, that they don't have value, but through all of human history, prayer and praise and honoring the world have been part of, in a lot of traditions, of what bring the world alive. Like it's a life or death matter to offer ceremony, to offer our attention out. And that to me, it's like I get chills thinking about that. It's not frivolous. It's not something, and it's not navel gazing either. It's out. And it's, yeah, what happens? There's one of my favorite poets, Patty Ann Rogers, in her poem Supposition, she speaks of what if, what if praise had an impact on the universe? What if that, had a ripple out into the cosmos? And just imagining that, like the poem, the Hiron's poem that you read, like what impact might that have? That we can't quantify or in our measuring systems, but that might, if all of the humans, the millions of humans before us were doing this thing to honor and feed the world, how might that be important that we do that now? So hopefully I kind of got to it there.
Yes, absolutely. That is so powerful, this feeding of the world. I love it. And I just had this image of sort of all around the world. What if we were tending to poetic ideas and concepts and, really heartfelt? I believe that when we're in ceremony and prayer, it's really from the heart, and that the importance of all kinds of windows of knowing, of course, and the importance of intentionality and feeling the heart, especially as we're creating the world not only for ourselves but for the future generations. So I think it's really fundamental. Yeah, thank you. Yes. And yes, so now I invite you, if you would like to speak to us about dance and your experience, and yes, anything you wish to share with us about that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Yeah, so for me, one of the portals into myth and my relationship with the world has been through my body. And as so many of us, the body is cut off. We're ashamed of it, especially as women. We grow up with shame around the body. It's, not honored. In fact, it's to be hidden away, or changed or something like that. So for me, the first kind of poetic way into the body, because I was an athlete, I did a lot of sports, but that had that very linear, like, I'm thankful for that. But there was something about moving creatively and letting something else move through me that really had a profound impact. And so that for me, someone at years ago suggested ecstatic dance. And I remember the first time going, and it's in ecstatic dance, there's no speaking, and people are all kind of there doing these weird, I don't know, at the time I was like, what's going on here? What are these people doing? There's no steps, there's no form. There are waves of music that you move with. And it was awkward and uncomfortable. And at first I kind of thought I wanted to run screaming out of the room, but I stuck with it. And I started to allow myself just to move for the pleasure of it, to feel the way my body wanted to respond to my emotions. I started to invite dreams. I would be in a dance with 100 people, and I would feel the dream of here I am with the whale who's sinking in the ocean, and I would just let myself dance with her and feel that. And suddenly I'm under the ocean with everyone, and tears are streaming down my face in the midst of all of the other humans I'm with. And I felt so that was allowed there. I felt held and able to do that. So yeah, ecstatic dance. Wonderful woman in Seattle who's been holding a dance for about 25 years up there at Dance Underground. She's I think one of the first ones I went to and danced with her for years. And from there, I just was so hungry to know what else is here. So I went to Five Rhythms, whose founder, Gabrielle Roth. Yeah, she, I think in the 70s, founded that through her own relationship with water and the ocean, discovered the wave, the five rhythms that she speaks of. And I won't go into the details of it, but there's a way that you build up and then drop down through the dance. And it's like a moving meditation, a moving exploration of the body and emotion and imagination. Another offshoot of Five Rhythms that's around all over the world. Five Rhythms, you can find dances in most countries almost at this point. Another one is Open Floor, and that's a couple of my teachers, Kathy Altman and Lori Saltzman, were originally Five Rhythms teachers, and then they and a couple others founded Open Floor Dance. And this is another practice that I highly encourage people to check out and try that. Yeah, all these amazing women in the 70s. Anna Halprin in California developed this art life process, and her daughter Daria continues that. I haven't worked with either of them directly, but in the lineage of those through my teacher, Haley, who does a practice she calls dance healing. So lots of ways to go into that. And the last kind of formal movement practice I might mention is contact improv, and another form that developed in the 70s. And that's, let me see, Steve Paxton and Nancy Stark Smith, who from contemporary modern dance developed this form of bodies moving in space and in contact. And it's something that's really hard to describe without going, but it's a place to be in the human animal connected body and exploring connection. So much comes up with that. I've heard people say it's like 5 years of therapy in a couple months of going to contact improv. So it's a great way to explore edges and connection. Yeah. So and for me, all of these, their practices, I still continue. I now guide dance. I bring in a lot of my work with animus, and I use a lot more. Let me say something like practices that open to the depths intentionally, because some of those practices are more geared around healing or fun or exploration, and I find that they're also very useful to deepen into the what I would call the unconscious, subconscious, mystery, underworld territories.
That's all so rich, allowing the dance to move through you. Yeah, so you just tickled on right at the end there. Underworld synonymous with unconscious. Yes, I am curious about. You spoke earlier on about how, cultural myth and the underworld and the unconscious, like perhaps you could speak to us a little bit about that. Yeah, like you live in Arizona in the United States, and yeah, maybe you want to speak to us briefly about your relationship with the land there, the wild ones, the myths there. Perhaps there's a specific myth you want to speak to, and if you could just sort of like, if it's not too much, I know that's really rich and a lot, but sort of weave in something about, yeah, underworld or unconscious, like how does that fit together, Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, just a bit of a love song to the land I live in right now. Yeah, this desert that is home to so many beings. For thousands of years, humans have lived here and been in relationship with the giant saguaro cacti, with the bats. I'm absolutely fascinated by the mother bats that fly. It's something like 2,000 kilometers from Mexico. They make their way, these tiny little mamas with their fetus in their wombs. They fly up towards the blossoming cactus, towards the saguaro cactus and the agave blooms. And they make this treacherous journey, just trusting that nectar is waiting for them. And the cacti here are waiting for the bats to come and pollinate them in only the way they can. And so to be in that, I mean, the risk of that, the trust, the faith that these beings have. I mean, the cactus to open in a place where water's so precious. I know you've spent time here. It's like the dry, your skin dries out, to open this magnificent white bloom under the moonlight, to give all of that energy and that risk of opening into the night. It just breaks my heart. Like that kind of faith to send everything. It's like, who knows what's happening with the world, with climate change, with all the things, but it's like, they still just like, I will open. I will take the precious water and give this gift to the night, to the moon, to the bats that are coming up. And there's so many things I could speak of here in the desert, but that's one of the stories that just absolutely has me captivated right now. And yeah, you asked about myth. It's something I've been with. As a child, my mom used to read me some of the Greek myths. I loved the myth of Persephone and, going down into the underworld in that. And in the last few years, I've been a lot with the myth of Inanna, going down to the realms of Reshkigal. And there's something about myth that's so universal. And this idea of upper world, underworld, the twin of dark and light, the goddess or god of life, the god or goddess of death. In so many myths, they're right there. They're often literally twins or siblings. And I'm always like brought alive and just fascinated that these ideas, they're not psychological. They're not something that came through the 20th century of talking about unconscious and Jung and Freud and these kinds of things, but they're there in the very fabric of humanity, in myths across the world. And just a couple weeks ago, when I arrived in Mexico for a somatic program, the first morning, a dear woman, Jimena, she's a somatic facilitator from Central Mexico. She said, "Remind me what you do." And I said, "Oh, soy guía del inframundo. I'm an underworld guide." And we started joking. And she's like, "Do you know the story of Quetzalcoatl's sibling?" And so Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god, is probably the most well-known of the Aztec or Mexica gods, but Xotl is Quetzalcoatl's twin brother, who is the god of darkness, and Quetzalcoatl, the god of light. And these two, she's telling me this story over coffee at breakfast, and I'm just captivated. And I didn't know, she said, "Do you know where humans came from?" And in the Aztec, the world is constantly dying and being reborn. And so in the fourth or fifth world, I get this wrong, but they need the next generation of humans, but the bones of the last generation are in the underworld. And so these two gods dare to go down into the realms of Mictlan, which is the underworld of the Aztec. And they're these precious bones. They're as precious as jade or gold. They managed to get these bones from the underworld after a harrowing journey. They have to go through all sorts of trials, and then they bring them back up and they pulverize them. And Quetzalcoatl adds his own blood and the blood of the gods. And that's where humans emerge from. And so it's Yeah, there's so many different tellings of that story. I've just begun to read a little about it, but just that moment of Jimena telling me the story in that moment and what that did to my body, what that did in cracking open my heart and the trembling of, this is real. This is universal. There's something about going down, relinquishing everything of the upper world, relinquishing like Inanna did, her gifts and jewels and crown, to go into the underworld, to die to everything that has served, to be transformed. And that's where life and transformation comes from. So,
Goodness, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for telling us. First of all, I just want to mirror back very briefly the image of these bats flying from Mexico with their and going to the flower in the desert. And then you speak to us of this magnificent, there you are in Mexico over a cup of coffee in the morning, and you're getting the story of this myth. And I'm just like completely transfixed. It's extraordinary because I think it's so directly related to a process of being able to be, as the ancients talked about, to die and be reborn every day, and the bones being the essence of who we are. And so that in itself is just like so powerful. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of this beautiful conversation, and I just wanted to ask you about, you mentioned it in your first answer, you talked about the aliveness. And especially, as all of us know, at this time in the world when, war is expanding, violence is prolific, as some people would argue throughout, the history of humanity, but now especially as this pivotal time for the earth, for the ecosystems, creating a relationship with grief. Could you speak to us, like, if you could guide us, like, how could we create a relationship with our grief, which would really sort of be descending down, allowing ourselves to feel, as you talked about, going into the underworld, the unconscious of ourselves. Yeah, could you speak to us about that? And also, like, if you could speak to these leaders of certain countries that are guiding us in a direction I believe is sort of damaging our world for the most part, what would you propose for the future? I know that's a very big question, but perhaps you sort of touch on it, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for naming grief. It's another one of the things that we turn away from in our society, and such richness is there. There's so much lost when we don't open our hearts to grief. And for me, the connection between grief and love, they're both right there together. And so it's like, how do I open to my grief? Really feel into what I love. Like, really, what do I love? Dropping below the superficial, the things I might think I love. If I drop really what's deep in my heart, what do I long for in the world? What just absolutely brings me so alive and breaks my heart to be here on this planet, this precious planet, this place in this moment. And so, yeah, my sense is if we could all really tap into that, into the love and the grief, what might happen? There's so much fear of like, oh, depression is real. There's that, but I don't think true grieving is that. It's a movement. Depression is stagnancy, but in grief, something is moving through us, and it's being expressed to the world. And so again, it's a way of connecting. It's a way of really feeling ourselves as part and the belonging. And one of those, I imagine our ancestors wailing and keening and feeding the world our love through our grief, through our tears. That's naming. I love this so much. So yeah, lots more I could say about grief, but it's and for someone who's just to go back a little bit, you asked what um, resources there are, what practices. I will say that there are a lot of beautiful humans that are holding grief ceremonies. So for a lot of us as a human species, I really recommend people find Francis Weller, Lawrence Cole, lots of other people are doing grief rituals. I'm sure in the UK there's ones happening that can be really supportive if you find some humans to do that with. So it can be a challenging territory if we haven't navigated. So I just want to put that in there. And to your question about the world leaders, politicians, and what, yeah, it's like one of those moments. If I had a moment, I think feeling into that, I wonder what would happen if those humans who are in control of so much of what's happening, if they were to really feel into their own deepest longing, like just for a moment, let go of all the strategies and plans and that, and really, what's under there? What do they really long for? You know, not the bank account, not the power, but what really matters. Because my sense is if they could even just for a moment tap into that, what might be possible?
So to conclude this exquisite conversation here in Mythopoetics for the Future, I have some quick questions for you. And I would like to know if you want to share a favorite book, a favorite song, a poem that you mentioned, a poem that's inspired you. And then finally, would you like to read us? I'd love if you wanted to read us some of your poetry and or a poem that you'd like to share with us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Well, since you asked my favorite book, that's an easy one. One I've recommended to so many people, and it's by Amanda Scott, and it's the Boudica series, where yeah, she's from Scotland, was a veterinarian and crime writer, but she's also an amazing person to follow. She's got a podcast, Accidental Gods. I highly recommend. But the Boudica series, it's the stories, they're fiction, but it's like she's really in connection to something moving through her through these books. But she speaks of the time when Boudica was the queen of the Britons when the Romans came and invaded. And it's, yeah, I won't say much more about it, but just so gorgeous. She talk about mythopoetics and dreaming, and it just I will say they're quite violent. It was a violent time, and there's a lot. They're hard, and the number of times I sobbed during those books. I mean, it's there, but there's a realness and the story that comes through. So that's a long answer to my favorite book, but Amanda Scott, yeah, wonderful writer. And let's see what else. Favorite song? Is that what you asked me? Um, right now, I've been kind of listening on repeat a song by Marta Leva, Love Song. It's quite slow, but it's just one to dance and move to, so evocative. And that one sometimes I'll just put it on and move or invite people into that. Yeah, I like lots of different music, but that one right now is just gorgeous. And um, I mentioned earlier the poetry of Patty Ann Rogers. She's not so well known, but her poetry that speaks to the connection between um, nature, cosmos. It's just absolutely gorgeous, erotic, alive, and yeah. But for today, I think a lot of her poems they're gorgeous but quite long. So another poet of mine that is has been with me for years is Rilke. And I love the translations by Joanna Macy and Anita Barrows. And Joanna Macy, her story of finding Rilke, years ago and her relationship with him. So this poem is from the Book of Hours. And yeah, it doesn't have a title. It's just 114. But I'll read this. This is, yeah, I often am with these words. They're with me, especially in the dark times when it seems like there's so much that just wants to take my attention. This is a way to come back to the aliveness, to remembering that it matters, to say yes, to show up, to be here, and to we're here at this moment. Let us just live and be fully, presently, with grief, with love. You see, I want a lot. Maybe I want it all. The darkness of each endless fall. The shimmering light of each ascent. So many are alive who don't seem to care. Casual, easy, they move in the world as though untouched. But you take pleasure in the faces of those who know they thirst. You cherish those who grip you for survival. You are not dead yet. It's not too late to open your depths by plunging into them and drink in the life that reveals itself quietly there.
Thank you so, so much, Marta. Thank you for reading those words of Rilke. Thank you for sharing with us tastes and experiences and your being. It's been an honor to receive your words, and I invite those of you who are watching or listening now to contact Marta. And where is the best place? Do you want to mention your website, or how can people get into contact with you and receive your mentoring or participate in your immersions or retreats?
Yeah, thank you so much. My website is nightlionguiding.com. And yeah, feel free to contact me through that. I list current programs that I'm offering. And also, if you would like to reach out for mentoring, I'm available for that. And yeah, definitely recommend that. I might also mention the Animas Valley Institute has a commons that's free to join. And I just want to name that because on that we offer a lot of some of the practices around dreaming and embodiment and counsel. So that's another way that I participate in that and offer things on the commons as well. So that's a completely free website for people to check out as well.
Thank you so much, Marta. I'm going to put the links here with the interview, and just in deep gratitude to you. May you continue to sow all your beautiful seeds and bring your presence to this world that longs to receive you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. So good to be with you. And I'm just thrilled that you are bringing your gifts into the world and hopefully letting more people know about the possibilities and magic and beauty that are waiting if we can just open our eyes and senses to them. Thank you.